Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I have Rick Weissenborn with Tool for Boards, and it's a very interesting product and a very niche product that has grown globally, and it's a brand story that I want to share with you all today. So before we get into that, Rick, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what Tools for Boards is?
Absolutely. So, as you said, my name's Rick Weissenborn. I founded Tools for Boards 30 years ago, actually a bit more than 30 years ago, 1990. I was a ski racer and I had an idea for an invention that I ended up developing, patenting, manufacturing, and that was basically the beginning of Tools for Boards. So I started as an inventor, had a product that I found a need, identified a need for, and from there, it did go global actually quite quickly. So I was 18 years old. I jumped on an airplane and flew to Japan, of all places. At that time, Japan was the largest market for ski equipment in the world. It was larger than the U.S. market in the early 90s, and I ended up finding a distributor there to purchase the product before we produced it, before we manufactured it. Came home with a purchase order, went through a process of developing it, finalizing the tooling, and producing it, actually physically producing the parts, putting them together, shipping them over to Japan. And then from there, our Japanese distributor was actually the distributor for a Norwegian company, a ski wax company called Swix, and they had operations globally, and they ended up picking up the product on a global basis. So one thing led to another, but it started with an idea. So
Kind of an accidental entrepreneur, right? Like you saw something that was missing in the space. You had an idea for what you could create. Did you create I assume you created some kind of prototype to kind of prove out the market, and then the market kind of proved itself by people buying your product?
Yeah, exactly. Technology had changed in the ski industry. So skis were no longer rectangular. If you took a cross section of them, they started injection molding the tops of the ski so that they were rounded, and it was very difficult to hold. And so I invented a product that used the binding to hold the ski as opposed to grabbing on to the ski itself. And up until then, woodworking clamps were really popular to hold skis. So this product held it in a different way that didn't rely on the integrity of the side of the skis, which was difficult. And we ended up launching that, and there was a real need for it. So so it started with identifying a need, having a specific area of expertise. So ski racing, I was preparing my skis all the time and realized that there was a need for that. And then that's how it developed.
Yeah, and a lot of people are always looking for what kind of products to bring to market, and they always say niche down, right? Find something you're interested in. So here you are as a skier who had a problem, you solved your own problem, and then found other people that had the same problem. Today, how many SKUs does Tools for Boards have? And then I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what are your sales globally, or how many countries are you in?
Yeah, so we have approximately 750 SKUs on Amazon, for instance, and a lot of, as you say, niche products. So a lot of products that basically complement maintenance and preparation of skis, waxing, sharpening edges, that type of thing, skis and snowboards. So we're global. We have distributors in Asia, Korea. We've sold into Europe, Middle Europe primarily, although we do have a presence in England and a few other places, Australia, and but our largest market is the US.
So how many products have you invented, or has your company created, versus when you get to a certain size, you can start carrying more commodity products because people are now familiar with your brand. So what's your mix of products that are maybe unique to you, or that you guys have kind of created in the industry, versus more commodity brands because now people are coming to you, they're coming to your website, they're looking for your brand?
Yeah, so started with one product that went well. We established a relationship with this Norwegian company, so we started selling products that we sold directly to them, to their distributors, and branded with their name. So I sold I actually developed 7 products for that company over a course of about 17 years. More recently, we've supplied Burton snowboards as an example. We put their brand on the product that I developed, and then we sold it through them. What we were finding is that we were economically dependent on just a couple companies, which wasn't a good idea in terms of having any kind of potential in terms of our growth. So that basically prompted me to develop our own brand, and so that was the kind of the precursor to developing tools for boards. And then from there, we brought those products back under our brand, sold them directly, and the internet really facilitated that, or the development of the internet and Amazon and so forth. But because before that, we were basically totally dependent on distributors, and we had no real means of getting our brand out there, or our brand story, or getting in front of people. So we depended on these companies, but the internet really changed that. And I'm probably dating myself, but there was a time when I first started negotiating with this Japanese company where we were sending our contracts back and forth by FedEx because the fax machine hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
So
so it sounds like you have products you've created yourself. It sounds like you've generated business through licensing, which is a great way to expand your business line. And then it sounds like you went into kind of your own version of private label. You were developing it for other people. Now you're developing it for yourself, and you've built your own brand. Over that period of time, what's one of the biggest challenges that you've encountered as a brand, and what did you do to overcome it?
Yeah, so that our largest challenge was growing beyond the companies that we supplied. So fortunately, I invented these products and patented them and controlled the distribution of them. So we were able to transition quite quickly when we determined that it wasn't the best course of action just to sell to customers. So that was the biggest challenge in terms of overcoming actually creating a brand, launching it, getting out there, and having a means to sell it. I think that was the biggest challenge for us to overcome. After we've done that, our growth has accelerated, and we've done very well. So yeah. Does that answer the question?
Sure. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to these.
Okay.
So in terms of marketing strategy, what would you say has worked the best for you?
So it's been our involvement with Amazon and building a relationship with Amazon, because through that relationship, they've actually promoted and done a lot of the marketing for us. As a small company, we didn't have a lot of resources to go and had to have a large ad spend or marketing spend. So working with them has created an environment where we're able to grow with them, and they've obviously grown quite dramatically over the years. So that's been our marketing. Our largest marketing push has been our focus on selling to Amazon.
And what is your mix today between selling on your own e-commerce site, selling to third-party distributors, and selling on Amazon?
It's about a third. So we sell. We have our online presence through our website, a direct sale vehicle. We have sales through bricks and mortar retailers that also have an online presence, similar to REI in Canada. It's Mountain Equipment Co-op, or Mountain Equipment Company now. So that in Canada, Mountain Equipment Company is our largest customer. Globally, Amazon's our largest customer, as well as in the U.S. market. So it's about a third. Yeah.
And I think that's a good mix, right? I mean, everybody wants a mix where they're not too dependent on one or too dependent on the other. What's one software, service, or process that's really helped you and your company save time and save money?
So it's XCart. So I know you guys are acquired XCart recently. I think Seller Labs a year and a half ago.
Yep.
So we've worked with them for about 15 or 20 years, actually. So they were the first company we went to in order to create a website, in order to sell our market, our brand. And so initially we did it because they had really great people, and they were very, very cost effective, very inexpensive relative to other options that we were looking at, uh, and worked quite closely with a group of developers in Russia on developing our website, and from there it grew, and they that bar none has been our best relationship from a software perspective, because it's basically fueled our website growth and enabled us to reiterate as necessary year over year in order to keep current and to build our brand awareness primarily. Yeah.
That's a great answer that leads me into my next question, right? So brands must evolve, brands must change over time. Where do you see your brand in 5 years? And I think I'm going to reiterate asking the question, but I think that what's interesting about the ski industry is the ski industry has massively evolved, right? People are now renting skis for the season versus buying skis because the technology is changing so quickly. There was a move to snowboards, which then has now come back to skis. There was the birth of the X Games and all of the other types of skiing that didn't exist 20, well, maybe now 30 years ago. So with all of that in mind, where do you see your brand in 5 years?
Yeah, so we want to be the most relevant provider of accessories for the snow sport industry. So that means that we started with specific tools for maintaining and preparing skis. We've diversified into distribution of ski wax, for instance. We're going beyond that. We've developed other tools. We're actually expanding beyond actually ski and snowboard specifically. Now we're getting into bicycle accessories and tools, things where we can leverage our knowledge of existing products and product extension into other industries within sporting goods. So we see ourselves as being maybe not dominant in terms of the amount we sell, but the most relevant brand in our niche snow sport and bicycle industry.
So I find your answer fascinating in two ways. One, you spouted off the answer without hesitation. And that's something that I tell sellers all the time, that they have to know. You have to know your vision, you have to know your mission, and you have to know your elevator pitch, right? And that's a great example. You weren't prepped to be able to answer that, but you could quickly answer exactly what your mission and what your vision is for your business. And I commend you on that. I think the second one is, and I think this is a struggle that a lot of sellers see over time, is that if you were to have stayed in your original lane, right, of tools that helped with the waxing or maintenance of skis, you'd probably be out of business today, because the industry has changed. It evolved into snowboard, and you have evolved your business and you've expanded your business as you've learned to include, and now you've included things like wax, which are reusable products. So you now probably have repeat customers versus the larger equipment pieces, which people maybe are only buying once every couple of years as the equipment changes. They need to change their equipment for maintaining the equipment. And I think those are critical things for sellers and brands to realize along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we started with durable goods that were more expensive, but lasted forever. So we'd have a one-time customer. Then we expanded, for instance, in tools. To give you a specific example, the abrasives and the files that are used to sharpen edges, we've integrated those into our tools. So So it's kind of like the Gillette razor model. We sell the razor handle, and then we sell the refill, abrasive material or files or that type of thing. So that's greatly expanded our business. It's given us a recurring revenue stream that we didn't have before, and it's absolutely, it's important to continue to develop new stuff that's relevant. A lot of things that we develop, sometimes they'll succeed, sometimes they'll fail, but keep developing things, keep introducing them, learn from the introduction so that we can continue to go forward. And if we stop doing that, we're dead.
Well, and I think one of the other things to kind of point out here is that if you were to just try to come into the commodity tool part of your market, you probably would have struggled mightily, because there were other tools that already had a brand, that already had recognition. But by being able to come in through the durable goods part, you built your brand, you built your audience. And then when you released tools, it was a natural extension for those people to also buy those from you.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. And
So,
also it added credibility. Yeah, our initial products that people were familiar with added credibility to the new things that we launched. Provided some incentive for people to buy those because they're already familiar with us. Yeah.
the world of e-commerce is over 20 years old. It's probably many years older than that, but it's still in its infancy. Where do you see e-commerce going in the next 5 years?
So it's going from approximately, what is it, 25% of sales at this point, as a result of COVID has really accelerated that transition from bricks and mortar and to online, and that I see continuing to accelerate. I see it in 5 years maybe being over 50% of sales. Maybe that might be a bit optimistic, but somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's going to be an extremely important, almost all important in terms of selling. So if you don't have an online presence, you're not even in the game, right? So yeah, so in terms of, I see it becoming dominant in around a 5-year period. And other things.
And I think it's interesting for people, especially us in the space, who believe e-commerce is dominant, to actually think about it. Pre-COVID, e-commerce was only around 16% of total sales, and so now it's over 20%. My gut tells me it's probably going to dip a little, right? There's going to be kind of a little resurgence back to retail, and then e-commerce is going to take back off again, because once you build these habits and patterns of buying online, you're not gonna change.
Yeah, and technology is facilitating that. So things, consumer goods that people were reluctant to buy online, technology is providing the tools that are required so that you can make buying decisions without having to go into a physical location. So as that accelerates, I think that it's just generally a more efficient model. I mean, showing up at a department store and walking around looking for things, there's a lot of, it's not that efficient in terms of, it might be a nice experience, but in terms of the actual purchasing decision that you make to buy something, it's not very efficient. So
right. Yeah. I think there's still a place for it, right? I had to take 3 kids to get shoes for back to school, and it was much easier for me to go take them all to a mall, take them into their stores, walk out an hour and a half later and have all of their shoes, because they had to try them on. They had to walk around, the number of shoes I would have had to order. But 2 of the 3 kids, I ended up buying their shoes online while I was at the store.
Right.
So there's going to be a hybrid model that's built out of that in a way too. One last question I have for you. You've been in business for a while. You've grown a really nice e-commerce business. You've built a nice distribution business. You've built a nice business on Amazon. You said it's a third. What's one piece of advice you would give to another brand that's getting started today?
Okay. So fundamentally be bold. Okay. Because there's a lot of noise. You have to have a product your products have to be very good. Okay. Best in class typically, or close to that. but you need to be bold and you need to have perseverance. Okay, because launching something, there's going to be a lot of setbacks. It's a very complex environment. So you're not going to be perfect at everything you do along the way in in developing and producing and launching a product. It's a big ask. So you need to have perseverance. Over time, you learn, and as you learn, you get better at all this. But fundamentally, you also have to be bold, because if you go into something and you're not fully committed, you're not going to succeed either. So I'd say be bold and persevere.
And I want to just reiterate a couple of things you said within this short interview. One, you admitted to failure, right? And so many times when we speak to people, they talk about their successes, but they fail to talk about their failure. And what you mentioned was you learn from your failure. So you talked about failure, you talked about learning, and I think those are two critical things. Another thing that you mentioned that I think is critical for people to remember is you have to have a good product. It all starts with having a good product. And sometimes we get so hung up on these little niche things that we want to do to generate sales, but we just don't have a good product. So it has to start with a good product. And then the third one is perseverance. Now, I'm a follower of the lean startup model, which means that you hit these moments in your business where you hit a KPI and you either need to pivot or persevere. And that's a strong concept that's talked about within that book. And persevering moments mean that you drive forward. Pivot moments mean you change. And and the businesses that succeed are the ones that understand when to pivot and when to persevere. So perseverance is critical and important, but also there's times where you have to think about pivoting, because sometimes the direction you're going, the product that you launch just isn't the right one. And that's where the failures come into place. I want to thank you, Rick, for joining us today and sharing with our audience. And if anybody is looking for any equipment, go to Tools for Boards and feel free to reach out to Rick to ask any additional questions. Thank you.
Thanks.